that?
Are you really sure? Are you really
Yes.
sure you want to go live?
Already, we are live. I am having a lot of fun with Sacred Blue Heron Woman, and we do that every day almost. And every week we get together and have this wonderful Aini Living conversation. This is the 107th session of
Wow.
of this conversations, and this is the second session of the five agreements. Um, and I talked about and I posted about the big agreement, the ancient great agreement, which you talked about on the first session, where we all made an agreement to be part of. And I would wonder, did we really make that agreement?
To be part
Um,
of domestication or what?
exactly, yeah. When were we told about that really?
Yeah, exactly.
And so you talked about that, and then you talked about the first new agreement
Right.
that is going to help us um, break away from that domestication and that is enslavement. So today we continue with the next four agreements that are still pending, and I don't know if we'll be able
We'll
to
get
get
through
all
them.
four done this
Yeah.
session, or it'll take us more sessions. But here we are. This is Aini Living Conversations of Aloha Aini Dao Living. I'm Julian Katari, and I leave you with Sacred Blue Heron Woman.
Right. And a wonderful day it has been here in Oklahoma. It was a beautiful fall, just a beautiful fall day.
That's wonderful. Here, at least a little bit, very little tiny bit of sunshine we
Yeah,
got. So it wasn't that bad.
cool.
Not like the
Cool,
last
cool.
2 days, it was like hurricane or
Wow.
cloudy.
Well, if I could send you some sun, I would. It's just been gorgeous here. So, so the second agreement, do not take anything personally. One of the hardest things to do because we love to suffer. So we love to take things personally. So in not taking anything personally, we have to realize that every mind is a world. So these next 4 agreements are born from the first one, which is be impeccable with your word. So what I wanted, before we go on, let's talk about quickly. First of all, let's go with that first agreement. When you set the intention and you say every day, I am impeccable with my word, that starts a clearing program to clear, right? But it's not instantaneous. You have to continue. You have to repeat that quite often. I am impeccable with my word. I am impeccable with my word to start the detoxing process, so to speak.
Okay.
So now let's shift to a total different subject quickly because we have this Ring of Fire eclipse coming up on Saturday.
Right.
It's not that rare. It happens once every 2 years, but these eclipses happen in 18-year cycles. So the last time this happened was this annular Ring of Fire eclipse happened was, let's see. Did I leave that open? No, I didn't. Yeah, no, there it is. So they call the eclipse, astronomers call the eclipse cycles Saros cycles that happen at an interval of 18 years plus 10 days and a third of a day. And every 18 years plus 10 days and a third of a day, you have the exact same eclipse. So the last time this type of annular eclipse happened was across Portugal, Spain, and Africa on October 3, 2005. Okay. So the people in the path of, so what this eclipse, the moon is passing, grandmother moon is passing between us and the sun, right? And she's stationing perfectly. between us and the sun, so she blocks out the sun except for a ring of fire around her. So it won't be complete darkness like a total eclipse. And there's this path. This year's annular ring of fire eclipse is coming down the Pacific Northwest and down into the Yucatan and Central America and South America. And 18 years ago, it was in Portugal, Spain, and Africa. So the people in the path, they're getting I'm not fully, I'm schooled on this yet, but we talked about the shadow. I believe this is Grandmother Moon's shadow that we're taking in fully, drinking in fully. The people in the path of totality, so to speak, are getting Grandmother Moon's shadow.
Okay.
So those the people that can see it, that are in the path of totality, are the most affected, but it affects all of us. So once again, we're closing a cycle of 18 years on Saturday with this eclipse and opening a new cycle of 18 years, 10 days, and a third of a day. So this is a time, especially since this coincides with the new moon, this is a time for us to go inside and look at our last patterns of our last 18 years and go, what needs to go? What needs to, so that we can enter a new chapter of our lives, because this is a new 18-year chapter.
Right. 18 years, that's a long chapter.
Yeah. So.
Already. So get people prepared, and as we always include the time, some mention this is what I love about this. It's so live, because it's so on the time. You're always channeling about something that's happening in the cosmos, so it's very well appreciated to have this information.
Well, so on that point, looking at patterns, looking at the big picture, I'm just thinking what was happening in my life. What was happening in my life October of 2005? I had just joined the Army. I had just finished officer basic course, and I was incorporating into a military lifestyle and getting ready to deploy to Iraq. Now look at what happened. There was a cameraman, a videographer that came on Monday from a veterans to feature BWD Dehesa on a veterans hero show.
That happened 18 years ago.
So he was here on Monday in October, but right. So we're in this window of eclipse. This is just dawning on me. As I said, look at what happened in your life 18 years ago. I knew I was going to deploy. I didn't know at that point when. I just knew it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. I knew it was on the horizon. So I had just come out on this point in time. I was still probably an officer basic course at this point in time with this eclipse, coming out of that, getting ready to, and by Christmas Day, I was leaving for Iraq.
Wow.
18 years ago.
So it wasn't that long ago. I don't know.
So incidentally, this is what I'm pointing with the eclipse, right? This last annular ring of fire eclipse, although it happened, the path of totality was over Portugal, Spain, and Africa. This is how it affects us, right? So 18 years ago, I was just coming out of officer basic course, knowing I was going to be deploying to Iraq at any time. And 18 years later, I've been on this path of bringing healing, doing something different for us veterans, and totally shifted into a new, bigger picture. And here we're being gonna go on national syndicated TV.
Wow.
This is the patterns. This is the patterns of our lives. This is how we've got to expand and look at things. And so this is really cool.
So I'm thinking now, what did I do 18 years ago? I was doing something interesting.
Yeah.
What was it? 2000? Wasn't it near
2005.
2005?
Yeah, that's 18 years ago.
Oh wow! So it's 2 years past 9/11.
Right.
So it wasn't that. So I'll think. I don't want to pause this for that. So, but I'll think about that, and let's invite our viewers to do that exercise. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I invite everyone watching to put a microscope on your life. What happened 18 years ago that I'm closing a chapter on now?
Mm-hmm.
And moving into a new chapter, a new 18-year chapter. So that being said, let's close that discussion and move into the second agreement. Don't take anything personally. Every mind is a world. So when we were born, there were no symbols in our mind, yet we had a brain, we had eyes, and our brain was already capturing images that come from light. So we started perceiving light, and we became familiar with light and the reaction of our brain to light with its continual, endless play of images in our imagination, in our mind. So we were dreaming. And even when our brain is awake, we are dreaming, and we all have the tendency to daydream. So we've got to understand and got to realize that the dream is constantly changing. We love to think things are static, but they're not. Our imagination is so powerful, it takes us to many places. We see and hear things in our imagination that other people don't see and hear. Imagination gives movement to the images we see, and the images exist only in our mind in the dream. So imagine we look in a mirror. Inside the mirror is a whole world of objects. Yet we know that what we see is just a reflection of what is actually real. If we try to touch the mirror, touch the objects in the mirror, all we're going to touch is the mirror. We won't actually be able to touch the objects, right? So what we see inside the mirror then is a virtual reality, a dream. And it's the same kind of dream that we dream with our brain awake. What we see inside the mirror, so every day, actually, when we look out into the world, we're seeing a mirror, and it's a copy of the reality that we create with the capacity of our eyes and our brain. It's the image of the world that we construct within our mind, which it means it's how our mind perceives reality. So what a dog sees in the mirror, when a dog looks out into the world every day, what your gato sees when she looks out into the world every day, is far different. It's entirely different than what you see.
Yeah.
But we're looking out on the same world.
Yeah, that happens a lot. But sometimes we want to think that we know what the cat's thinking, but it's not what they were thinking.
Right. So, and then again, what an eagle sees is totally different from what we see, right? What a mouse sees is totally different. So there's all these perspectives, and they're all true.
Right.
But they're not the absolute truth. So now imagine looking into your eyes instead of in a mirror. Your eyes perceive light that's being reflected from millions of objects outside of your eyes. So Grandfather Sun sends light all around the world, and every object reflects billions of light rays from everywhere, and they come and go inside our eyes and project images of objects in our eyes. So when we think we're seeing objects, we're just seeing light that's reflected. So everything we perceive is a reflection of what's real, just like the reflection in a mirror, except there's one important difference. Behind the mirror, there's nothing, while behind our eyes is a brain that tries to make sense of everything. So our brain is interpreting everything we perceive according to the meaning that we give every symbol, according to all of the knowledge programmed into us. So everything we perceive is always being filtered through our entire belief system, that book of law that we talked about last week, that is in our brains. So, and the results of interpreting everything we perceive by using everything we believe in our personal dream is just that we create this world. So this is how we create our entire virtual reality in our minds. So now perhaps it's easier to understand how we unconsciously distort what we perceive. So light produces a perfect image of what is real, and we distort the image by creating a story with all these symbols and opinions that we've been programmed with. We dream about it with our imagination, and by agreement, we think our dream is the absolute truth when really it's only a relative truth. It's only a reflection of the truth that's getting distorted by the knowledge, by the book of law that we have in our brains. So many New Age or Old Age masters have said that every mind is a world, and it's true, because the world we think we see outside of us is actually inside of us. It's just the images in our imagination, a dream. And when we're not aware that our mind is always dreaming, it's easy to blame everyone and everything outside of us for all the distortions in our personal dream. So to realize that our mind is always dreaming gives us the key to changing our dream if we're not enjoying it. The story we're dreaming today is not the same story we were dreaming yesterday or even half an hour ago. The story changes depending on who we talk to and depends on our emotional and physical state and so much else, right? But those are the main ones. So at some point in time, we realize that it's just a story, a virtual reality, and nothing but a dream. But yet it's a shared dream because all humans are dreaming at the same time. So everyone in our world is sharing some little piece of this dream. And this goes to the process of Ho'oponopono. So we've all made these agreements. And this is why there's people in our world that bits and pieces of their dream are the same as ours. That's why they're in our world. And then the more bits and pieces we share, the shared dream of humanity, then it becomes the dream of the planet. And there's so much of what we've dreamed, that the dream of the planet that's been there since before we were born, that we've tapped into. So who is dreaming the story of your life? And how do you not take anything personally? Well, for example, if you're walking on a street in a town, in a city, and someone walks by you and calls you stupid, without knowing you, it's not about you. It's about that person. If you take it personally, then perhaps there's a belief inside yourself that you are not aware of that believes that you are stupid. You take it personally because you agree with what was said. So as soon as you agree, that poison goes through you and you are trapped in a dream of hell. What causes us to be trapped is what we call personal importance. Personal importance, or taking things personally, is the maximum expression of selfishness. Because we make the assumption that everything is about us or about me, right? During the time of our domestication, we learned how to take things personally. What we don't understand is nothing other people do is because of us. It is because of themselves. It is because of their distortions, of their domestication, of their programming. All people live in their own dream, in their own mind. So they are in a completely different world than the one we live in, than the one I live in. So therefore, nothing they say or do can be personal because it's about them and their dream. We're just coinciding because we have the shared dream, the shared data, the shared memories. Right? So when we take something personally, we make the assumption that they know what is in our world, and so we then try to impose our world on their world by taking things personally. So even when situation seems so personal, so direct, it still has nothing to do with us. What they say or what they do and the opinions they give are the opinions they have and agreements that they have in their mind. Their point of view comes from their programming they received during their domestication process. So if someone gives you an opinion and says, hey, you look fat, don't take it personally, because the truth is that person is dealing with his or her own personal beliefs, opinions, and feelings, right? That person tried to send poison to you because they're feeling shitty inside themselves. So they tried to send poison to you by saying, hey, you're fat, right?
Yeah.
And as if we take it personally, then we take that poison and it becomes ours. Taking things personally makes us easy prey, because someone then can hook us with one opinion and feed us whatever poison they want to because we took it personally, and we eat all of their emotional garbage, and now it becomes our garbage.
Mm-hmm.
If we do not take things personally, then we are immune in the middle of hell, and that is the gift of this agreement. When we take things personally, then we feel offended, and our reaction is to defend our beliefs and create conflicts. When you know who and what you are, you don't have the need to be accepted. We can just be.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you can, okay, so let's go on here for a minute. You can say about what that person said really hurts, but it's not what they said that's hurting me. It's the wounds that I have inside myself that were touched by what I said. So I'm choosing to hurt myself. So
Right.
for instance, today, my new friend, I offered him a glass of wine, as I do, because I drink wine every day. I'm okay with drinking wine every day and not calling myself an alcoholic. Right? It's just, I like the taste of wine, and I choose to do this every day. I don't do it to say, oh, I've had a shitty day. I do it to, it's been a wonderful day and I'm celebrating life. So today he asked me, you drink every day, and his, as best as he could, right? And I said, uh-huh. And instantly I know I'm and then he goes on to ask how much I drink.
Okay.
Right. And I kind of figured that would come. And I'm working through this because there's feelings in me that want to come up because of past programming, because of past people I've dealt with, because of my past husband who was of the same race that had a problem with me drinking every day, drinking wine every day. It's not personal. It's his beliefs and his opinions, and I'm still clearing this. This is what we have to understand. Once you make the decision to not take anything personal, it doesn't happen just like this. It has to come. This has to process. Every time somebody says something that you want to rise up, then you go. Then this brings us to the whole Pono process that clears these points of emotional charge. And so now my job is to say inside myself, I love you, thank you, I love you, thank you, I love you, thank you, because it doesn't matter if he wants to be in my world, then he's going to have to accept the fact that I've chosen to drink wine every day and not be judgmental, right? And it's not my choice to change his judgmental. It's not my choice to, it becomes then my choice to say, I'm not going to take your judgment personally, because I know that's coming from your life,
right?
Your program.
And that's not drinking wine is every day is pretty common in Europe. It's pretty Catholic kind of thing here in at least in Latin America, to be so judgmental about something like that. It's very, very Latin American Catholic, because I know that in Europe, I had an exchange student from France. His family owned a wine vineyard, he would swab, drink half a bottle. He was 16 years old, and he would drink like if it was water, and that
Yeah.
was like a normal thing. He wasn't no drunk or anything. It was just that's. I mean, cultures can be different.
Absolutely. That's why I'm saying it's just you have to come to the point. But I felt I felt this defensiveness rising in me. And now it's
Mhm.
my choice to say, it's not personal, right? It's not personal. I kind of figured that would come because the person he's living with said, I don't drink because I'm an alcoholic. Well, so this person has chosen to put himself in a box of saying
Right.
I'm an alcoholic. And so this, right?
Mhm.
So there's all this programming that's going on in their world that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's not personal. And this is where then the whole Ponopono process comes in to discharge these feelings that I have that are still triggering this that says it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong.
Mhm.
So that I don't take it personally. This is finally where I'm at the point. I've been struggling with this for, my third husband was the one that had the book. And I used to be like, how do I not take this personal? How do I not take this personal? And I have finally come to this. So this has been what we got married in 2014.
Mhm.
So it's been almost a 10-year journey of figuring this out, and it's finally clicked. How do I not take things personal?
Mhm.
Right. So the way to not take things personally has nothing to do with not trusting or believing in somebody. We just know it's simply because we all see the world with different eyes. So his point of view is personal to him. My point of view about drinking wine every day is personal to me. And instead of making a judgment of it's right or it's wrong, it's just personal to me. And that's my own personal, the way I am. Now, if I become a mean and nasty person when I'm drunk, then I need to look at that. But, or if I get drunk, right? But anyway, it's still my truth.
Mhm.
So if I get mad, I'm dealing with myself and dealing with fear or something that's inside of me, right?
Mhm.
So the most important point about this agreement of not taking anything personal is to remember that no one perceives us the way we want to be perceived.
Okay.
They can't.
Well, take a note of that, please.
And then the next step after that is we don't even understand ourselves half the time. So why should we take anything personal? Because we don't understand ourselves. So why should they understand me if I don't understand myself when they don't even understand themselves? Right? So don't take anything personally as a beautiful tool of interaction with our own kind, and it's a big ticket to freedom because we no longer rule our life according to other people's expectations. So the third agreement is don't make assumptions, and this is based on truth or fiction. So for a very long time, we humans have believed that a conflict exists in our mind, a conflict between good and evil. This isn't true. Good and evil are simply the result of the conflict, because the real conflict is between truth and lies. We can accurately say that all conflict is the result of lies because the truth has no conflict at all. The truth doesn't need to prove itself. It exists whether we believe it or not. And we have to remember that in an infinite universe, there are very, 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 very few absolute truths.
Okay.
So the very, very, very few absolute truths have no need to prove themselves because they're absolute truth for everybody.
Right. What happens when you think about things in depth?
So lies only exist if we create them, and they only survive if we believe in them. So let's investigate now how we can use the word to create a story, a lie, a superstition about a chair. Let's take a chair. We can say this chair is made of wood or metal with plastic or cloth, and those are all symbols to express a point of view. The truth is we don't really know what this object is, yet we use the word chair with all of our authority to deliver a message to ourselves and everyone around us. So we decide, well, that chair is ugly. I hate this chair. So now we have this distorted image of this chair, and we can go on to say it's a stupid chair, and I think whoever sits in this chair might become stupid also. So I think we have to destroy the chair, because if someone sits in that chair and it falls apart, that person will fall and break a hip. So now the chair is evil. So now let's create a law against the chair. If we deliver this message, whoever receives it and agrees with the message starts to become afraid of this evil chair. And so very, very soon people are so afraid of the evil chair, they have to destroy it before it destroys them. And it's just a chair. Mm-hmm. It's just an object that we know nothing about, that we've just called chair because we've all, right? Mm-hmm. But because somebody decided to create a story, now the chairs become evil, and we have a lie against sitting in the chair. And right, think of how this works in our lives in far different ways than just a chair. So the chair is just an object. It exists, and that's the truth, right? There's this object that exists. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. The story we create about it is a lie, a superstition, and it's not the truth. So hell is nothing but a dream full of lies. And one of the biggest lies we hear all the time is nobody is perfect. So it becomes a great excuse for our irresponsible behavior, and almost everybody agrees with it. Mm-hmm. Is it true? No, it's not true. Because every person, every human, every being in this world is perfect. The truth is, the absolute truth is that everything in creation is perfect, including us humans. Yeah. But we've been hearing this lie of imperfection, and so we keep judging ourselves against an image of perfection that's not real. And then we have a tendency to make assumptions about everything. The problem with assumptions is that we believe they're the truth. And so we make assumptions about what others are doing or thinking, and we take the assumptions personally, and then we blame them and react by sending emotional poison with our word, and we create drama for nothing with assumptions. Mm-hmm. So be aware that most everything we tell ourselves is an assumption. It's very interesting how our human minds work, because we have the need to justify everything, to explain and understand everything. We have a need for knowledge, and we make assumptions to fulfill our need to know and to feel safe. Right? That's not what it's all about, feeling safe. It's not important if the answer is correct. Just the answer alone makes us feel safe. That's why we make assumptions, to feel safe. When we believe something, we assume we are right about it to the point that we will destroy everything, relationships and everything, in order to defend our position. Making assumptions is all about thinking and not about asking questions. We think too much, and thinking without asking questions leads to assumptions. And we make the assumption that everyone sees life the same way we do. We assume others feel, think, and judge and abuse the way we do. This is the biggest assumption we make, and this is why we have a fear of being ourselves around others. We also make assumptions about ourselves, and this creates a lot of an inner conflict. We overestimate or underestimate ourselves because we haven't taken the time to ask ourselves questions and answer them. So often when we get into a relationship, we justify why we like that person, see only what we want to see, and then we make the assumption that my love will change this person. This is not true. Our love will not change anybody. If others change, it's because they want to. maybe because of our example, not because we can change them. So to go off a little bit here, we can't change people, but if you have a incredibly strong vibration, then you'll pull. So take, for example, the relationship I just came out of. He was very linear. He lives in a very linear, rigid world, dogmatic Christian world, but because I have become so confident, so grown into myself as perfect, whole, and complete the way I am, my vibration pulled that out of him. So he was a total different person when he was with me than when he's with his. Right? Because I pull the best out of him. That's how we change people, by working on ourselves to be the best, lead the best fulfilling life we possibly can, and that will pull that out of other people. That's the only way to change someone. But that work has to start inside ourselves. And that's, again, the example. Right? So we have this belief, that this assumption that my love will change this person, then something happens and we get hurt. And suddenly we start to see what we didn't see before. And now it's amplified by our emotional poison. We don't need to justify love. Real love is accepting other people the way they are without trying to change them. So imagine the day that we stop making assumptions with everything in our life. Our way of communicating will change completely, and our relationships will no longer suffer from conflicts created by mistaken assumptions. So the way to keep ourselves from making assumptions is to ask questions and to make sure they're clear, and to find our voice to ask for what we want, because everyone has the right to say yes or no. And even if they say no, we still have the right to ask. And we have to be okay with the no. With clear communication, all our relationships will change, and we won't need to make assumption because everything becomes clear. And when we don't believe our own assumptions, the power of belief that we've invested in our assumption comes home to us. When we recover all the energy that we've invested in making assumptions, then we can use that energy to create a new dream. So the fourth agreement, always do your best, because practice makes the adept or the master. Practice makes the cooper who could make a barrel to roll down the road and direct it where you want to go with one finger.
You would think that's an obvious one, but I've met people that they're not trying to do their best. They're trying to just make ends meet or something like that.
Yeah, well, because they're not living their true life. They're just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Right? So when we're ready to change our life and our agreements, the most important thing is awareness. We can't change our agreements if we're not aware of what we like and what we don't like. Beyond the awareness is the practice of new agreements that will make a difference. So everything we have ever learned, we learn through repetition and practice. The way we live our lives is the result of many years of practice. We practiced it until it became automatic. So when we start practicing something new, when we change what we believe we are, our lives change. So when we practice being impeccable with our word and don't take anything personally and don't make assumptions, we dissolve thousands of agreements that have kept us trapped in a dream of hell. And then very soon we agree to believe what we agree to believe will become the choice of our authentic self, not the choice of the image that we thought we were. So always do your best is the only thing we can do. And the best you can do isn't giving 80% one day and 20% the next. It's always giving 70%. This comes from the Dallas.
Okay.
Because if we
How does
say
that
we're
work?
giving 100%, we're usually giving 110 or 120, and we tire out really fast. So
Okay.
if we give 70%, that's the stamina that we can keep up with,
Okay.
that we can live with every day. Right?
Okay. Good to know that.
So if we make that our intention, then we know that our best is always also changing. And from one moment to the next, we're never the same. We're alive and changing all the time. So our best is also always changing. Our best will depend on how we're feeling physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So let's take that, for instance, that 70%. So when you're doing martial arts, if you do 100% and you straighten your arm, that's the easiest way for someone else to break your arm, because it now becomes rigid.
Yeah.
If you do 70%, you keep a bend in your elbow and it's not breakable.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So our best will depend on how we are feeling physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So this is where 70% can allow us to be consistent, because if we, like I said, if we aim for 110 or 100, we don't consciously realize that subconsciously we're always going above and beyond the 100 because of this stupid image of perfection. And so that is where we fall into the, I just can't do it. So I'm only giving 20% this day and 110% again tomorrow. And then it's like, oh, fuck, this is too much work. I just can't keep up with this. But if you're consistent with the 70%, it becomes easy. It becomes, right?
Okay. That's so useful to know.
Yeah.
And I kind of apply that. I figured out with the years that it's better to me to be consistent in let's say an exercise, right? So of course you're all you're all fired up and full of testosterone and like being a man, and so you say, oh, I can do a lot more of that. But then I learned that if I burn myself out, I'm gonna hate it, and I'm not gonna do it as often as I really should be doing it.
Right.
So I learned to do little bits, but those little bits are consistent.
Yes.
Right. I keep doing it, and I really do advance a lot more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot easier, and your life will produce a lot more change if you keep up with that little bit, that 70% consistently, as opposed to 120% today and nothing tomorrow because I burned out.
Yeah.
And there are times when that happens, and that's, the most important part of this is accepting yourself exactly where you are in the moment and always readjusting, because a heat-seeking missile is off course 99.9% of the time.
Okay.
It's always readjusting.
Right.
Right. Wow. That's probably one of the most potent things I ever learned. You can be off course 99.9% of the time. You just got to constantly readjust without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So this agreement, to always do your best, helps the first three to become deeply ingrained habits. Life gives us everything, and everything in life can be a pleasure. Why not believe in the generosity of life? Why not learn to be generous and kind with ourselves? The dream of our life is made by thousands of little dreams that are dynamic. Dreams are born, they grow, they die, which means they're always transforming. So when we love ourselves unconditionally, we are no longer prey for an outside somebody who wants to control our life. We no longer sacrifice ourselves for anyone. The result is the freedom to live and lead our own lives instead of the life of the belief system that we've invested in. Doing your best always doing our best, we're going to live our lives intensely. Doing our best is taking action because we love it, not because we're expecting a reward. And then we find that we enjoy every action we do, and rewards far greater will come. God is life. God is life in action. The best way to say, I love you, God, is to live our life doing our best. The way to say, thank you, God, is to let go of the past and live here and now in the present moment. And when we surrender and let go of the past, we allow ourselves to be fully alive in the moment and do our best. So, the fifth agreement, be skeptical while listening, because the power of doubt is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we need to be skeptical? Because most of what we hear isn't true.
Yeah, that's very special for today, for the reality we're living today. It shouldn't be something like for all the times, I guess.
Yeah.
Even more today.
Right. We know that all of us speak with symbols, and the symbols aren't the truth, right? When we learn to listen, we understand the meaning of the symbols that people use, and we understand their story, and communication improves. When we realize that hardly anything we know through symbols is true, then be skeptical has a bigger meaning. Be skeptical because it uses the power of doubt to discern the truth. Whenever we hear a message from ourselves or another artist, we'll simply ask, is it the truth? Is it reality, or is it virtual reality? And the doubt can take us behind the symbols, and therefore we become responsible for every message we deliver and receive. When our faith is not in the symbols, our faith is in ourselves. If faith is believing without a doubt, and doubt is not believing, be skeptical, don't believe. What will we not believe? All the stories that we artists create with our knowledge, our fictitious, fallacious knowledge that we've learned in school, in programming, in our domestication. We now know that most of our knowledge isn't true, so don't believe me, don't believe yourself, and don't believe anyone else. The truth doesn't need us to believe it. The truth simply is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, take your cat, for instance. The truth is it's a form with 4 legs. That's God's honest truth. Anything else you say about that is virtual reality. I mean, that's the absolute truth. It's a form with 4 legs, ears, and it makes noise, and it has a tail. Anything else about that is a virtual reality.
Right.
And even all those symbols I just used to describe it are not reality.
Mm-hmm.
This can become very perplexing, very wow. Not perplexing, kind of very wow.
Right.
Right. So skepticism can go in 2 directions. One way is to pretend to be skeptical because we think we're too smart to be gullible, and make us say, I don't believe in anything. This is not skepticism. That's just whatever. To be skeptical is to not believe everything we hear without running it through our holy being inside us first, or just simply saying, I wonder, is that really true? That's worked for so much for me lately since COVID. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? And then the answer comes, a more
Mm-hmm.
truthful answer. Remember that, and the truth is like an onion, layers always get peeled back. So the way to be skeptical is just to be aware that our entire humanity believes in lies. Every one of us distorts the truth, and we don't need to just judge what somebody says or call them a liar. We judge, we respect, and listen to the way people, understand that we judge, but just leave it at that. Just be respectful and listen to the way people express their symbols, and knowing that whatever they say is distorted by their beliefs, and that way the judge can just be quiet. We always judge. That's just right.
Mm-hmm.
But the judge can just be quiet. The judge doesn't always have to be banging the gavel on the desk and saying guilty or not guilty.
Yeah.
We can respect what somebody else says because it's another artist speaking. The judge can just be quiet. When we learn to listen, we show respect for their art and their creation. We can share their point of view, knowing it's just a point of view. The key simply is to listen. And if we don't learn to listen, we don't ever understand what anyone is sharing with us right now. And right now, I'm sharing through every week in these live streams, I'm sharing the way I'm dreaming heaven into being. And what I share with everyone else is true for me. And when you come and join ADL, you know that everyone, and you come being commit to being a cohabiter student, so to speak, then you know that everything I share is true for me, and you need to run it through your filter and make it true, and decide what parts are true for you and what parts aren't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's the way we don't put gurus on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also know that what I'm sharing is not absolute truth. So don't fully believe in me.
Right.
Right? It's your job to go beyond what I've
Mm-hmm.
said. So of course, from my point of view, I'm sharing the clearest truth with you. I'm doing my best to use my words in the most impeccable way so that you can understand what I'm saying. I also know that you will hear this message and tell yourself the same message in a completely different way. And that's the best, so that you can understand what I'm saying. And that's the best way to be, because, I mean, if we all believed everything the same, we'd all be a world of nothing but robots. So I am only half of the message, and you are the other half. I am responsible for what I say. I am not responsible for what you understand.
Right.
You are responsible for what you understand and for what you do with what you hear, because you are the one that gives meaning to every word you hear. Whatever you do with my words is up to you. So as you learn to listen, you can understand what I'm saying. And if what I'm saying makes sense to you and resonates with you, then you can make it a part of your dream if you want to. You take what resonates with you, what makes you sing, so to speak, what makes, so if a violin is resonating with the strings all start vibrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it makes you vibrate, that's kind of funny terminology, then you make it part of your dream and modify your dream, and whatever doesn't resonate, you ignore it. But you don't judge and say you're wrong. That's what we do to each other, right? We think we know things don't resonate, but we take what doesn't resonate and say, well, you're wrong for believing that way. It won't make any difference to you, but it won't make any difference to me if you don't resonate with everything, but it might make difference to you because I make the assumption, knowing it's an assumption that you want to become a better artist of your life, and that's why you're challenging your own beliefs. So then be skeptical. Don't fully believe me. Don't fully believe anybody else, and don't believe yourself, especially yourself. Mm-hmm. Which means don't believe everything you've learned, because it's mostly all lies. You have to relearn everything. The truth doesn't come with words. It's silent. It's something you just already know without words. This is called silent knowledge, and silent knowledge is what you know before you invest your faith in symbols. When you open yourself to the truth and learn to listen, then all the symbols lose their value, and the only thing that remains is the truth. Matter is truth. Life is truth. Light is truth. Love is truth. Joy and happiness are truth. And the truth lies beyond our beliefs. When we go beyond symbols, what we find is a world of perfection, where everyone and everything in creation is perfect. Even the investment of our belief in every word is perfect. our anger, our drama, our lies are perfect. Even the hell we sometimes allow ourselves to slide back into is perfect, because only perfection exists. Imagine living our lives with whole lives without learning all the lies in our knowledge, without suffering from investing our faith in lies, superstitions, and opinions. We would then flow with life like the rest of the animal world, the tree world, the rock world, which makes us keep our innocence our whole life. So in the process of our domestication, we lost our innocence. And in losing that innocence, we start to search for it. And the search actually leads us to gain awareness. And once we recover our awareness, we become completely responsible for our own evolution, for every choice we make in our life. And we've got to understand that unlearning and undomestication or rewilding is a very slow and powerful process. So be skeptical, learn to listen, make your choices of what you want to believe, be responsible for every choice you believe. This is your life. It's nobody else's life. And that is the way we live together.
Pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And then you covered all the agreements.
Yeah, we're done with all the agreements.
Wow. Man, isn't that something? I mean, so well put together and so powerful. Like I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Wow. So there you have it. The five agreements. How these? I would invite people to keep this. It's not that one-time thing, right? It's something you can spend your whole life seeking to achieve, to make it work, to be impeccable with your word. 10 years ago, I thought I was somewhere with that, and then 1 year ago, I discovered how I could even improve, and would catch myself with very little small lies. I would say, and then I figured out a way to not say the lies and not get in trouble, because sometimes we lie because we live in a world where you get in trouble if you're completely honest. So, but then there's a way to say the thing you need to say. You just need to kind of be more deep about it, and more broad about it, and more informed about it, and so many other things.
Well, and it's a lot of it is too understanding that, we get this concept of that lies are this black and white thing, right? Mm-hmm. That comes from being kids, because when we're kids, things are black and white. And understanding it took me a long time to realize that sometimes you just need to present people with the vibration they need to hear. While it may seem like a lie, you get more accomplished by presenting them the vibration they need to hear.
Yeah. And or even in some cases, I figured that there's something I can say that is, I don't know, it reveals, even if I know they're not going to understand it, but part of them doesn't understand it, they still need to hear it, and some part of them does understand it. I mean, like you're saying, yeah. Hey, the government, oh come on, that's a corporation. That's an illusion, that the idea that your government or your country is an independent nation. It's not really an independent nation. It's part of a corporation that's centralized, But so I learned to kind of say that truth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you have to shock. So this friend I just was in a relationship, right? He was so proudly telling me that his church had finally come up with their bylaws and their standards of conduct. And I said, well, with that, the only entities that have bylaws and standards of conduct are corporations. So you're no longer a church, you're a corporation. And I didn't hold any, there wasn't any need for me to make myself right in that. It's just sometimes dropping truth bombs and just letting it be.
Yeah.
Right.
And we would think it's another way that something else I learned about respect, because here in Mexico you get a lot of people saying, for example, about masks, right? When it was time, now it's like only very few people wear masks. It's like 1 out of 20. But there was a time when it was almost like 8 out of 10. And
Yeah.
And so some people would, I mean, if you got engaged into a conversation about it, and they would kind of agree with you about many things, they would still say, well, I agree with you, but still I use it out of respect, they would say. So I really thought about that, and I figured that, I mean, because they would think, oh, out of respect, I'm going to wear the mask because that other person thinks that if I'm not wearing it, he might get sick, right? So I respect him, so I'm going to do it. But then,
But I don't respect myself in the process because I'm not living my truth.
yeah, and that's one big huge point. But then there's other big huge points, which is, so wait, so he's believing a lie, and I don't respect him enough to tell him he is believing a lie.
Yeah.
Right. So I changed all my perception around respect, and now I tell people, because I respect you, I say this to you. I'm not gonna, if I know or believe whatever that this notion is completely wrong, I'm gonna say it because I respect you, because I wish that you know the truth, right? And that you and I'm not gonna give you on your side, go with your flow to maybe I don't respect you, and that sometimes is the case. I don't respect you as much. Somebody's being rude to me, and I'll just whatever, sure, I'm not gonna put a mask on, but if you want to believe whatever you want to believe, go ahead. I'm not gonna argue with you. If they're gonna be, if they're in a unrespectful or rude kind of attitude, but if they're not, if they're open to dialogue, and then I'm going to respect them and tell them what I think is the truth. And I tell them, this is because I respect you, I say this, and I'm not going to give you I'm not going to go along with your lie, or just and think that's because that's respect. I don't know. I really respect something deeper and bigger in you than the lie you're believing.
Yeah.
And that's part of being impeccable with your word, because if I do that, I'm being impeccable with my word. I'm saying the truth.
Yeah.
So very powerful stuff, and I just wanted to comment a little bit about it, and so I guess we're passing the hour. So do you have any idea what next week's show will be about?
Yeah. Matriarchal societies, or shall we call it Manawahini societies?
Okay, Manawahini societies, beautiful. Matriarchal societies that are not in the domination paradigm. And I was just talking about it with a friend, my old great teacher friend who almost died by falling off a tree, but he survived. So he and it's pretty interesting. So I'll leave my thoughts for that conversation.
Yeah.
And invite people that we're not changing the time, still 8 o'clock Central Standard Time.
But we
And
could. It gets dark early enough now that I'm well done by 7:30, so we could move it back to 7:30 and just leave it at 7:30 for.
are you sure? Because then you're gonna go into the hour change in November, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, let's just leave it at 8 till.
Let's wait for
Fine.
that thing, and then we'll change it. Okay.
Yeah, let's just wait for that.
Okay. So I guess with that, we are done.
Yep.
Okay. So lots of love for everyone, and see you next time in the live stream.